Hello, my name's Bev and I'm the author of the book Please Eat, A Mother's Struggle to Free Her Teenage Son from Anorexia, which describes our family's battle with the deadly eating disorder, anorexia nervosa, which my teenage son Ben developed back in 2009 when he was just 15 years old. Before my son's eating disorder started, and while it was actually in the process of developing, I used to write a blog for a local newspaper in Weston-super-Mare in Somerset, and looking back on one particular post, it shows how Ben's eating disorder was starting to become evident in not strange behaviour, but just something that started niggling me. And I wrote about this in my eating disorder recovery blog from the 21st of June 2011, and this post is called Old Blog from May 2009, which shows the storm clouds were gathering. Accidentally clicking onto a blog I used to write for a regional newspaper, I found this entry following our spring half-term holiday in Somerset. Read it and realise that yes, the storm clouds were seriously gathering, and no one realised. The eating disorder began to manifest itself more clearly a couple of months later. But just look what I've written near the end. Anorexic. Anyway, this post from the newspaper was called Meltdown at the Marine Lake. In case you missed it, there was a serious emergency going on by the Marine Lake as half-term. 15-year-old Ben wasn't just having a bad hair day, he was having a total image meltdown. So there was no way he was going to get out of the car when we arrived in Weston from home. His hair was all wrong, just as tragic. He'd left his rockstar sunglasses at home. His positively concave abs were fat, he said, and the face wash he'd pinched off me had given him spots. You look wonderful, I sighed for the umpteenth time as he carefully positioned each expensive putty-covered hairpiece into place. I beg to differ, he said in a condescending way, pouting his lips in the car mirror and scrutinising his face from either side. Honestly, it's worse than having a daughter. He spends more time getting ready in the morning than I ever did, and in my day we didn't have hair straighteners, hair dryers like modern hair dryers, and half the goo, wax, putty, gunk and gel you can get these days. It was so much easier when Ben was little. Back then he was content with a quick short back and sides at the barber's, a quick rub with the towel, a free lollipop, and he was as happy as Larry. Or, if funds were tight, a swift once-over with his dad's electric clippers. Now he's taken a liking to the rather pricey hair salon I use. Even the graduate stylist costs a sharp intake of breath, inducing £26. Add on the tub of hair gel and you don't get much change from £35. The only consolation is that my husband's hair costs absolutely nothing to maintain. He's as bald as a coot. Anyway, walking towards the Marine Lake, Ben was taking a critical sideways glance into every window. He was pinching bits of, quote, fat, unquote, on his stomach and checking if his skinny bum looked too big. "Do you think I'm good looking?" he asked doubtfully. "I think you look wonderful," I replied brightly, worrying he may be bordering on the anorexic, but then remembering how he enthusiastically cleared his plate the evening before and feeling reassured it was just a phase. "I'm going to dye my hair black," he said. "Oh, and I'm planning to become a Buddhist." "You're what?" But he wasn't listening. He was busy texting his mates. "They've gone into town shopping," he said, hating being stuck with us in Weston-super-Mare on a bad image day, and scowling as my husband took a photo of him and me on the beach as we walked towards the pier. Crucially that day, I remember trying to find some lunch that suited all three of us. Ben's dad went for fish and chips, while Ben went for nothing in particular. I can't even remember him eating. Well, I went for a sandwich in a cafe later on. And that's the end of that post. So you can tell by reading between the lines in this post that I was beginning to worry something wasn't quite right, but I think I was putting it down to teenage angst and hormones and just the way teenagers are. But actually, it was the early days of an emerging eating disorder, which is something I could never have envisaged would happen to us. I was almost joking when I mentioned the anorexia in that blog post. The thing with eating disorders in boys and girls is that they don't suddenly happen. It's not a case of they go to bed one night perfectly normal and they wake up the next day like a skeleton and behaving very strangely. Eating disorders creep up on the individual and on the family very, very slowly, and it can take ages and ages before the niggles that are going on in your head, the worries, I'm not sure that's quite right, I'm not sure that's normal, niggles get to a stage where you think, I better take him to the GP because things just don't feel right. And as I've said before, that's one of the reasons I wrote my blog, I write my books, and I have done talks to parents, and I've been in the media talking about the signs of eating disorders in boys in particular, so parents can identify warning signs and get their sons referred and into treatment as soon as possible, so there's the best chance ever of a fast recovery and a sustained recovery, permanent recovery. Thank you for listening. You'll find a link below to my blog, and you'll also find a link to my website where you can download free PDFs of my blog, and also a link to Amazon where you can buy a copy of my book.